Welcome to Fan for Racing Radio. I'm Fan for Racing Sharon, and joining me today is Jay Huseman, and we've got a lot to talk about. I'm going to kind of start off here with our introduction. We're going to break down the biggest headlines from across NASCAR racing this weekend at Phoenix. We saw major shakeups across the sport. In the NASCAR Cup Series, Ryan Blaney pulled off an incredible comeback victory while Christopher Bell dominated most of the race, but failed to seal the deal. And we've got more hot topics to sound off about here in the Cup Series. Over in the NASCAR O'Reilly Series, Justin Allgaier and Jesse Love battled late for the win, setting up what could become. Oh, is that the storm?
Can you hear that? Yeah. I'm gonna step away for a second.
Okay. Over in the NASCAR O'Reilly Series, Justin Allgaier and Jesse Love battled for the win, setting up what could be one of the season's biggest rivalries. We'll wait and see what happens there. And in the ARCA Menards ARCA West Series combination race, Carson Brown delivered a breakout performance that has everyone talking. We've got the biggest winners, the hottest topics, and what these results mean moving forward. So let's sound off. The checkered flag has fallen, and now it's time to talk about it. Welcome to Hot Topics Sound Off. Jay has announced that he's got a storm happening in his area. We kind of heard some of it. He told me there was hail in the area, and we heard some of that during the opening here. So we'll keep an eye on that. Hopefully he'll be here for most of the show. But we've got so many things to talk about. And so I guess I'm going to go ahead and get started. Okay, he's back, so I'm going to bring him back into the queue here. Are you back, Jay?
I am here for the moment. Yeah.
Yeah, I did mention that you have a storm brewing over there. We've got hot topics here, and you've got storms brewing there. So we're going to get started here with the ARCA Menards Series, but please, I've kind of made a comment in the chat room in both Facebook as well as here on YouTube. We'd love to hear your comments. What are your biggest storylines from Phoenix this weekend? Let us know in the chat, and we just might talk about some of those. Oops, I lost Jay again. Oh dear. This is going to be a come and go kind of night, I think, here in Hot Topics. Hopefully Jay will be back. But I want to get started with the ARCA Menards Series combination race. Carson Brown kind of announced himself as the star of the show. He delivered one of the most impressive performances. Okay, he's entered the studio. Let me see if I can bring him back. Okay, Jay, I was just getting started with the ARCA Menards Series. Did you lose your power? What happened?
No, that one was not storm related. You know me, that was operator error. So I apologize for that.
Okay. Well, I was just mentioning that Carson Brown delivered one of the most impressive performances of the early ARCA season. He won from the pole, led every lap of the race, and earned his first ARCA Menards Series win in his first start on the national platform. He also scored his first ARCA West victory because it was a combination race, so he'll get points in both series. He held off his teammate Tristan McKee on a late overtime restart to seal the win, and Brown has instantly become one of the most talked about young drivers in the ARCA pipeline coming up through that pipeline. Your thoughts about that, Jay?
Yeah, well, for one, you look at the organization, and we've talked about this of having that pipeline, the teams they're with. You got to start there, those organizations. Then you bring in a talented driver like Carson Brown, and you mentioned teammate Tristan McKee right behind him at the finish. the battle throughout, and they were respectful, but they were clean. I want to say that. Those two showed what can be done. There were a couple other incidences throughout the race of young driver, inexperienced, I saw, made a mistake or two, So it was good to see that. But again, they were with two top drivers, with two very top organizations up there. To see that, I get excited about the future of all racing as they come through the ranks.
Yes, indeed. And like I say, I think it's really great that Carson Brown is from the ASA Stars Tour, and he's won championships, I think, in that series. To see him come over into ARCA, he did race the ARCA West race at Phoenix last year, the season finale. That wasn't the national series, it was the regional series. But it was really great to see him come back and use that experience on the national stage in the ARCA Menards Series and win this race. So I thought it was fantastic.
It was, and that tells you that, and we talk about this, no different, that maybe a little bit different, but similar to the Cup Series and the O'Reilly Auto Parts, when a young driver gets to go to toe-to-toe with the National Series drivers, the experience that gives them, the confidence, the momentum, the learning curve. I mean, all of it, there is, I understand fans had issues with some of the drivers running it full time. I get that. NASCAR made an adjustment. I think where we're at right now, it is important that they get to race against these drivers, though. You can't take it away completely.
I 100% agree. And from everything we've heard from drivers, most drivers tell us that they like it when a more experienced driver is in the field. It gives them a chance to talk to that driver. It gives them a chance to learn and watch what that driver does on the track. So I think it's a good thing. And Carson Brown is a good example of somebody who learned from his experience last fall and brought it to put his name in the spotlight, if you will, as a rising star in the ARCA Menards Series. Now, it was a 1-2 finish for Carson Brown and his teammate, Tristan McKee. So your thoughts about the 1-2 finish for Pinnacle Racing? It seemed like McKee was the only driver capable of challenging him. The finish was the team's first ARCA 1-2 result at Phoenix, and Pinnacle Racing Group just might be one of the top development teams in ARCA right now. Now that Venturini's gone, has Pinnacle taken that spot?
That's tough to say from that aspect because you still have what is Nitro. I know they got a little bit different setup going on, but with watching that race, I don't want to speak as far as McKee. Had that not been his teammate that he was racing, because he had several times where he got alongside and they raced really hard. Had it not been a teammate, I don't know that the result would have been the same. And that's why I said that of, racing a teammate respectively or respectfully. So, but again, that's conjecture. But I do think had it not been another Pinnacle teammate, might have a different outcome with neither one of them up front or a different one up front.
Well, they were working together. That was a good thing. And I'm sure there's an expectation that's been set at Pinnacle for how they race one another. But again, I like that they're being respectful, especially as young drivers coming up through the ladder, the NASCAR ladder, if you will. I like that they're being respectful of one another. I think that we've had too many drivers that have come up through the series that haven't shown respect for the other drivers. So I know it's teammates in this case. Would they do the same if it wasn't a teammate? I don't know. But I like the idea that they're showing respect to one another.
Well, you got a point there, because we have seen it actually amongst teammates of saying, hey, we're teammates until it's time, and, going for the win, I'm here for my own team. So we have seen some less than courteous even amongst teammates. So definitely a good thing there, like you said, of seeing that within that organization amongst those two drivers for sure, that they are willing to show that respect. And like I said, I'm not saying either one of them wouldn't have if it had been a non-teammate. I'm just saying the possibility increases.
Yeah, that is true. And we'll see how it plays out for the rest of the season. This was the second race for both the ARCA West as well as for the ARCA Menards Series. So we'll see how it continues to play out. Let's see, Mason Massey. Let's talk about him. He keeps the ARCA West points lead after this race. He finished fifth against the national field, which I think is also impressive. It's his second top five to start the season. He remains the ARCA West points leader, and he now has that 6-point advantage after just 2 races. Consistency could make Massey the early championship favorite. What do you think?
This is one where I talked about last week with him getting his first win. Totally happy for him. We got to see this week in and week out, the consistency, as we saw from Trevor Huddleston, who finished 4th right in front of him. Yes. If that can be maintained, though, you certainly do have to start putting him into that championship contention and possible champion. For me, again, I like to see more than just one race, albeit a win and deserved. Impressive and deserved, but can it be week in and week out? So far now, 2 weeks, and like you mentioned, it's also against the national platform. So that does add a little bit more value to this one than even maybe the win from last week.
Yes, I totally agree. I think Massey, the experience that he has on the NASCAR platform, in the Truck Series, in the Xfinity Series, or O'Reilly Series, I should say. I think that he's bringing that experience into this series, and it's showing. I think he could be a big contender.
Yeah, I think by race 3 or 4, we'll know for sure. Again, barring a week of something of not of their own doing. But yeah, I certainly got to look at him so far this season to go 1st and 5th. And as I mentioned, this being a national platform combo race, certainly held his own and showed he belongs there.
Okay, now you mentioned him. Trevor Huddleston's last year's ARCA West Series champion. He finished 4th in the combination race, the best finishing West Series regular. He continues to show speed after winning that championship last year. Huddleston may be the biggest threat to Massey on the West title fight. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, you most certainly got to think so. I mean, you're talking about the defending champion coming back with that team. So now the question becomes of if he goes 4th and Massey goes 5th with that win, can you catch him? That's the question. Or who has that one off race? And we've seen this in the past. Even an off race of 8th or 9th might end up costing you the championship if they are both that tight in a battle all year long, one position here and there.
Yes, it could become a rivalry, and it could be a friendly rivalry, or it could be the other kind of rivalry. But I think it could be a rivalry that's starting to build there between the two drivers. And we know Jan's Towing and Racing has usually come on strong as the season progresses as well. So we'll see how that plays out. And another driver that I love when he's racing the races, Thomas Annunziata, had a strong recovery. He finished in 3rd place. He bounced back after early season struggles. He showed strong speed against a deep field. Annunziata may re-enter the National ARCA competition conversation.
And this is one where I got to say, from what I saw of him, I consider him a road racer. Yes, he's in contention on road races, getting a win. But could he, throughout a season, maintain or hang with them on the ovals? And so far, I've had to eat crow, if you will, of, hey, he's not just a road course racer. So I am excited to see how he does throughout the season.
Yeah, he just finished 3rd on an oval. So I think that's pretty fantastic for Thomas Annunziata. I, too, am really looking forward to seeing what he does throughout the remainder of this season. Also, let's keep the conversation moving here. New generation filling the top 10. The top 10 included several young prospects rising through the NASCAR ladder, including Jake Bowman, Isaac Kitzmiller, last year's East Series champion, Max Reeves. We know how strong he's been. These drivers are widely viewed as future NASCAR National Series talents. Phoenix highlighted how the young the ARCA development pipeline has become, because several of these drivers are still just 15 years old.
And that's where I get excited of, yes, we had some of the veterans have some problems drop out, but again, you got to be in position, not be involved in whatever happened, which they were able to maintain and work their way around, but then be in position and capitalize on those situations, as we say, of, not just luck into a position. And I think we have seen that. Jake Bowman having gotten a victory. One you missed there, that Taylor Mayhew, we saw a good run already in back-to-back weeks. We know what Max Reeves can do. And then Robbie Keneally having a bounce back a week after the previous week, again, should be a championship contending in that conversation. However, has to make up points. And that's where he may have very solid runs the rest of the year, but one race, we've seen it in the past, an 8th to 10th place might be the determining factor when it comes to these East and West championships, because we see these guys first, second, and third week in and week out. It's tough to gain on them at that point.
Well, I know last year the ARCA West Series was a very strong and competitive series, and I think it's going to be really strong and competitive again this year. There were 3 or 4 females that were racing as well, and they did pretty well in this series. So we've got a lot to look forward to in this West Series, as well as the main ARCA Menards Series, the National Series.
I don't remember what race it needs to be, but I'm sure Isabella Robusto, after last year, again, had a tough start to the season and then went on like a top 10 or top 5 streak. Looking for that point this season because, again, she ran really well. Resulted, though, this past week in 28th. So I was just thinking about that. I was like, man, yeah, it took her, I think it was like race 8 or 9 where she went on her streak last year and got up into 5th in points because of that good, solid run week in, week out, barring the first part of the season. So I hated to see that happen again.
I know what you mean. Okay, do you have anything else you wanted to talk about here in the ARCA series?
No, I think we hit on the key points of, especially now when they'll go back to their individual East, West, and national platform, things will kind of settle out for their own points. But then as we see them come back again later in the year, I know the ARCA National Series runs, I think, a few more races with the East Series than it does the West. But again, it's a good thing. There's a lot to be gained from it. We get to see all of the talent and kind of how they stack up and rank. What you're looking at, though, if you're a O'Reilly Auto Parts Truck Series or Cup Series follower, these drivers come in, you're like, well, who are they? We're seeing who they are here and now.
Exactly. And one thing I do want to mention about Carson Brown, he was driving the number 28 Pinnacle Racing machine, and that is the championship winning car from last year with Brendan McQueen behind the wheel. So something to keep your eye on throughout the rest of this series as well.
Most certainly, and that's where I said there are some great organizations. Again, you mentioned Venturini stepping away and Nitro Motorsports taking over. McAnally Racing coming back in the West Series. The PRG group here. I didn't say that right.
Pinnacle Racing Group.
Pinnacle, yeah, PRG. Pinnacle Group. Those are organizations that are very dedicated to the ARCA platform. I don't know if we'll ever see them move up into the O'Reilly. Now, we saw McAnally do so. I'm not saying they can't, but Venturini, I mean, that was the ARCA Menards Series, if you will, for years, for decades. And you could run through the list of names that are now Cup Series drivers that know that's why they're there, because Venturini and McAnally were in these other series.
That's absolutely correct. Okay, let's move on to the O'Reilly Series. The top storylines after the O'Reilly Series race at Phoenix. We had Justin Allgaier versus Jesse Love, a championship rivalry brewing. The race ended with a late race duel between two champions. Allgaier passed Love with about 10 laps remaining after a late restart. The two went door to door in the closing laps before Allgaier pulled away. The result tightened the championship fight, with Allgaier leading the points and Love just a few points behind. This could become the defining rivalry of the 2026 season. What do you think? Because we knew that somebody new could take over the points coming into this race, and it was Allgaier.
Well, Sharon, I got to give you credit. You believed that. I was kind of skeptical. I know with the points difference that it was possible, mathematically. I really just didn't see that happening, but that tells you how vital the win and those extra 15 points were, because Justin Allgaier did take over the points lead with that. And seeing the dejection of trying to stay positive, knowing he had a good run, and he said it. They asked Jesse Love if he would have or could have done anything different. And he's like, I really don't know if I could have. I'll go back and watch it. But, I mean, truly dejected at that point because, yeah, you feel like you let one get away. But I don't know that he did. I think Justin Allgaier just in that stretch had that little bit better car, gave it a hard fight there to do what he could, kept it clean. Again, it was a clean finish. So, yeah, I mean, and there again, you're talking about they're definitely going to be in that championship contention conversation all year long and into the chase. We'll see if Jesse Love can repeat. He's one that if you recall a couple of weeks ago, I said I think is the one that's ready to go up to the Cup Series with RCR. There's a little bit different opinions there, but I will say that, I mean, and that I think of Kyle Busch, of somebody that finished second and that frustrated or upset. He handled it better than we've seen Kyle Busch in the past. I'll just say that. But you could tell he was pissed. I mean, he was upset.
Yes. Well, I do think that we're going to have a big, a big three this year in the O'Reilly Series. Justin Allgaier, Jesse Love, and Austin Hill. Those three drivers have already built a gap over the rest of the field early in the season. The three-driver championship battle could dominate the first half of the season. And if not the last half, definitely the first half.
Well, and just looking down, a couple that I would say, and I don't know what else you got there for headlines of get too far ahead, but Sheldon Creed getting that first victory. And I know that's one I said I wanted to hit on.
We're going to talk about that.
It kind of seems that way. Like you said, I wouldn't be able to disagree with that, being those three are a good chunk. The 30-point gap from third of Austin Hill to Kvapil in fourth. So, yeah, they are. But those are also veterans. It's amazing to consider Jesse Love a veteran already, but he's your defending champion. What I look for, though, is obviously we know they can maintain it. Who can maintain enough to catch up to them or get in that conversation and be the fourth, the big three and the other? But you got to remember.
And me.
Yeah, and me. Who's going to be the and me? Now, you got to remember, though, that's not even the case this year, because it's not that it can only be four with a one-race championship. It's a 10-race chase. But that kind of goes back to those three. If they reset, those three pull away again. So,
yeah, I think those three are definitely the veterans of the sport. And Jesse Love, if you recall, had a really fast start in the ARCA Menards Series as well, and did extremely well in that series. And he is a quick learner, if you will. And I think he's a little more mature than some of the other drivers that have come up through the series, especially those that are coming up with a quick start, if you will. So I do see him as kind of a veteran driver. And it is going to be fun when some of the Cup Series drivers come into the O'Reilly Series and race. how these guys are going to stack up with those Cup Series drivers. So far, I think they're holding their own, and I think they're going to make this an exciting season to watch.
And I agree. And you mentioned why I kind of look at maybe Jesse Love of being more overall ready, not just from the talent side, but how he handles himself. Again, with his second place finish that he felt like maybe he gave away. So I think that to me, would play a big factor, especially as a sponsor. And just a thought just popped into my head. I love I think we're getting back to that, seeing drivers in commercials and more interaction to the fans.
Yes.
And I think that's where Jesse Love can also thrive, not just on the track, but off the track as well.
I think you're absolutely right about that. Let's move on here to Carson Cavapo. He continues his breakout season. Cavapo finished third at Phoenix, continuing an impressive start to the year. He runs consistently inside the top 5. He's already sitting 4th in points after Phoenix. You mentioned being 30 points away from Austin Hill. Cavapo is emerging as one of the young breakout stars of the series. And he's been around a couple of years, but I think he is kind of breaking out this year.
And I certainly expected it. It's whether or not it's delivered. And again, just the way things worked out, I don't know if it's with sponsorship or driver agreements, having to do that shuffle of more than one team. And already weathered through some of that storm, because I think he's already driven for 2, if not 3. I'm not sure if it's been 3 already, but it will throughout this season. And that, to me, is really impressive. I was very impressed with him this weekend. Again, was up front and contending with them, lost a little bit there at the end. And again, I don't know if that was the lack of restarts or the veterans of just being that much better, but kind of got shuffled there towards the end, but to be able to maintain and go toe-to-toe with them.
Absolutely. I think that's fantastic. And I'm super excited that Carson Cavapo's in this series again. I know he's racing between 2 different teams, DGM in the number 91 car, but that car is prepared by Junior Motorsports, the team that he rides in the other parts of the time that he's racing in that number 1 machine. So I think it is impressive what he's doing in this series this year. And we'll see if he can continue that trend on the point standings and stay up there. I think he will. I think he'll be one of the championship contenders when the chase begins.
Okay, I might have gotten a couple drivers mixed together here. Carson Cavapo, you mentioning doing the DGM. I think he might only be through 2 organizations. Rajah Caruth is the one that's with 3, because he was in the Jordan Hunt machine this weekend. So he's the one that's going to be doing 3 different organizations. Yes. Okay. So to be clear on that. But yeah, I really do. Again, maybe it's not a championship year for Cavapo, but like you said, that breakout year, certainly going to be in the conversation. We know that with being with Junior Motorsports. I was one that I was a little, I'll use the word pissed off when I found out he wasn't even going to get the ride full time with Connor Zilic moving on. But they're helping out, like you mentioned, when he is with DGM, it is still a Junior Motorsports prepared car.
That's correct. Okay, now I know you wanted to talk about this next subject. Sheldon Creed and Sam Mayer from Haas Factory Team, they're showing contender speed as well. 2 more drivers who showed race-winning pace. Sheldon Creed ended up finishing in 4th. Sam Mayer finished 5th. Both drivers stayed in the mix all night and remained chase threats early in the season. The depth of the contenders in the O'Reilly Series is stronger than ever, and I agree with that.
And this is one of, both as drivers as well as an organization, I've been watching and waiting for the breakout as an organization, getting all the right pieces in place. I kind of thought, being that they were with Ford and one of the only Ford teams, they would do better and get full support. That didn't happen. They went back to Chevrolet, and it seems to be working. You can't argue with it at this point of the season, because they have been. Mentioned Sheldon Creed getting his win finally. but having both drivers, they overcame some things. And Sharon, you and I have talked about this. A championship team is one that has adversity, but overcomes it and doesn't shoot themselves in the foot on any given weekend. They work through it. And I think we saw that this weekend especially from the Sam Mayer side and a little bit from Sheldon Creed's team.
Yeah, I would agree with you. Overcoming adversity is certainly an indication of somebody who's racing at a championship caliber race. And we see that from these guys. They don't give up. They keep persevering and keep going after everything they can get. I think they are going to be contenders. I think Chevrolet has done a good job, and it seems to suit Haas factory team, which is a little bit surprising, but I think it's good. It seems to suit them, and especially these particular drivers. So I think we've got a lot to look forward to in this series. Now let's talk about the young talent versus the veterans.
Well, let me jump back in there. And there again, that's where as outside analysts, we don't have all the information. When they went from Chevy to Ford, I questioned that. But like I said, they were then one of a limited number of Fords. So I was like, well, then they have pretty much all of Ford's support, if you will, one manufacturer support. Why it didn't work out, don't know. And as you mentioned, coming back to Chevrolet obviously seems to suit them. The other thing I want to say is, having seen one come from Junior Motorsports and one from RCR, I think we have seen some growth in the drivers. We talk about that perseverance and overcoming. We have seen both of those as drivers have a little bit of an issue and kind of lose their cool and get out of line with teammates, out of whack. And that's one of them we got to mention. It happened with teammates. So I think they've both talked about that. They're gelling really well as teammates, as well as I think there was some maturity and growth of individual drivers there and understanding big picture. Hey, yeah, this week didn't go well. I'm not happy with it, but I'm not going to let it mess up next week or the week after, down the road either.
Yeah, the tagline was, this is where names are made. And I have to agree with that. And I think we're going to see a lot of names made this year in this series with all the drivers that we've talked about so far. But I also want to talk about the young talent versus the veterans, because I think we're seeing some growth there as well. Phoenix showcased a generational mix in the top 10. You had the veterans like Justin Allgaier, but there's also Jeb Burton. But you've got young prospects like Carson Cavapo, Corey Day, Raja Caruth. And Corey Day did get a chance to kind of comment about his situation. And I was glad to hear him say some of the things that he said as well. He knows he's got some learning. He's taking that to heart, and he's trying to do the best he can do to get the best finish he can get. The series continues to serve as a pipeline for future NASCAR stars, while veterans remain highly, highly competitive in this series.
That was one, depending on who you listen to and how you take what Corey Day said. There was acknowledgement of it, but it wasn't also, I got to tone back either. He didn't not stand up either. So that's one we'll have to see how that plays out throughout this year, and especially over, obviously. Yeah.
Do you think there's a little arrogance there?
Yes, but again, to be a top driver, yeah, and you know me, when we talk about Ross Chastain or Carson Hocevar, as a whole, I'm not going to say completely, I'm not saying they've never done anything wrong. As a whole, though, I do lean more towards the aggressive, I'm here for me and my team side of it. And Sharon, I know this goes back to Dale Earnhardt. You either loved him or you hate him. You either liked the way he drove or you didn't. I lean more towards the aggressive side. I ain't going to lie. Now, I like Mark Martin, but yeah, I'm one that I feel Mark Martin could have been a champion had he been a little more aggressive. Martin Truex, I know that was one of your favorites. Again, just a little bit of an edge, and I think they would have been better than they were. Martin Truex obviously was a champion. I was happy for him. But yeah, I'm one that I do tend to lean toward. Now, again, do I want to see him just outright run over anybody? No. And there were times where Earnhardt did it. The Terry Labonte incident, I think back to, yeah, I think that crossed the line, which, again, you do occasionally do, without a doubt. But, yeah, I lean more towards that side. So that's why I said he didn't completely say, oh, my bad, I won't do it again. He said, hey, I'm here to race and win. But he did acknowledge that, he may have ruffled some feathers and make some apologies. That goes back to this day and age of what does that apology mean?
Yes, that's a good point. Sometimes people apologize and then they go out and do the exact same thing the following week. Now, I will say that the one thing I will say about the drivers like Martin Truex Jr., Mark Martin, some of these other drivers that tend to show a lot more respect on the field and are not as aggressive. I think that those drivers do have the trait of persevering despite the adversities that are happening to them on the track. They still they still show that grit to go back out there and give it everything they've got. Those are drivers that take a car that's not necessarily running well and get some of the better finishes out of a not peak performance car.
And you're right there. We've seen that, and I know Kyle Larson would get put in that category of hang it out there, and then if he loses it, he loses it, whereas other drivers won't even put it in on that edge, but it may cost them 3 or 4 spots. They'll take that and come back and do it again the next week. And we'll talk about that a little bit later, too, with the chase format and the way the points look right now. Can you go out and win a race and then get a DNF, and win a race and get a DNF? Is that enough, even with those bonus points, to get you into the final conversation at the end of the year?
Yes. Okay. What about the independent teams showing some strength this year? Beyond the big teams, smaller or independent organizations ran competitively throughout the race. They highlighted the series that have more competitive depth than the finishing order alone suggests. Competitive balance could make weekly winners a little bit more unpredictable, especially as we get into the second half of the season. You mentioned Raja Caruth.
Well, and he's bouncing around. Again, he's with Junior Motorsports, Sam Hunt Racing, and then off the top of my head, I don't know if he also goes over to DGM, but another one or Hendrick Motorsports, maybe. I don't remember now, honestly. But Sam Hunt Racing
is back too.
And we've seen that. And those are ones I know other fans and people we've talked with don't see the faith or have the faith and see the future in some of these organizations, which I do. And I think you got to give them time. I think this is a big year for those organizations, with Colleague Racing having withdrawn at least temporarily from the O'Reilly to focus on the trucks. So I think this is a huge year for them. And we've seen some return on the investments they've made, whether it be crew members or drivers. And Viking Motorsports was one of them. Anthony Alfredo, I believe, got 10th place. Did I look at that right? Okay. Is one of those. Sam Hunt Racing has been slowly building and creeping up. And you mentioned Jeb Burton there with the 7th place finish, and he has come so close to victories, when it comes to the super speedways,
and
which a lot of times.
Anderson.
Yeah, and a lot of times that is. I believe that 32 of Jordan Anderson now has finished in the top 10 every week, and they've had 3 different drivers. You had Ross Chastain. Trying to think who was in it at the beginning of the year. Raja Caruth is the 3rd driver already. Jordan Anderson was in it at Daytona and got a top 10. There you go. So that tells you that. And then to see, again, teammate Jeb Burton in there on a 1-mile track, again, that has not been their necessarily strong suit. And we're seeing top 10s. That's that slow elevation. You go from 15th to 10th, top 5. They're on their way up.
Yes, and I think that's good news for the second half of this year in the O'Reilly Series. Anything more that you wanted to mention here?
No, that was, like I said, of Haas Factory as well as Sam Hunt Racing were the 2 organizations. But you reminded me of AM Racing, and then seeing that Viking got theirs as well. And we heard some of the stories. Off the top of my head, I can't think of the executives and crew chiefs and stuff. But again, there is investment being made. Takes time. They like to say you can't turn an aircraft carrier on a dime. It's a slow turn. But they're making or have made that turn.
And it's a never-ending process. You're constantly evolving. So we'll have to see how the second half of the season plays out. But I'm excited for the series. I think this series is going to be kind of the series to watch this year. And, not that the other series aren't fun to watch. They are. But I'm looking forward to it. Now,
Sharon has asked me to disagree with her more often, so I'm going to choose this spot. And if Sharon knows where I'm going, I'm going to say the Truck Series is the series to watch, because that's where Dodge is at.
Oh, there you go. Okay. Well, I think all 3 series, including the 3 series in the ARCA Menards platform, are all great series to watch. I'm just excited about the competition here in the O'Reilly Series.
Yeah, overall, I think you probably got the most wide open range, even above the Truck Series, because, again, Corey Himes kind of hogged the spotlight in years past. That one has opened up a little bit, but we still got several very top contenders. Ty Majeski, Lane Riggs, and Ben Rhodes come to mind. So that one, again, might have their top 3 already. But, yeah, I think the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series here certainly is, I would have to say, probably the most wide open, where we don't know who may end up in that chase and come out as a surprise victor, if they can get to those top 3 you mentioned.
Yes. But those top 3 are going to make all the other drivers better drivers. Trust me.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, now after the 26th NASCAR Cup Series race at Phoenix, the Straight Talk Wireless 500, several major storylines are emerging that are shaping the early championship battle or chase battle. The race was dramatic, caution-filled, and ended with a late race pass for the win. And we love those kind of races. Top storylines after that Cup race. Let's start with Ryan Blaney's comeback win. Ryan Blaney delivered one of the most impressive drives of the season. He came from the back multiple times. He overcame multiple loose wheel issues and penalties that sent him to the back of the field. He charged back through the field past Ty Gibbs with about 10 laps to go. He scored his first win of the season, his 18th in his Cup Series career. And Blaney's reminding everybody that he's a major championship threat this year.
And these are several things that we've talked about already. The perseverance, overcoming adversity, not shooting yourself in the foot. And surprisingly, they say that Ryan Blaney is one that can get rather vocal on the in-car audio. Even during those, when they went to play it and kind of get that, it wasn't there, rather surprisingly. He kind of rallied and said, hey, we had a mistake. This happened. We're going to overcome it. And they did. With that, the one of them you mentioned of having to do that pit in Joey Logano's pit stall. The tire was loose. They knew it before they got off pit road. Logano had the pole, had that last pit stall, went to a teammate pit stall, got that fixed and back underway. So, yes, as an organization, and then you got Penske Power, which has been dominant at Phoenix, and I'll come back to that as we get a little further into this. But so to hold it all together, and they gave a stat of like minus 49 on pit road, I think it was. It was up there in the high 40s, how many spots he had lost on pit road, to overcome that. And then the 2 loose wheels, which was part of it. Unbelievable. It really was well-deserved, and shows what kind of a championship team they do have.
Yes, indeed. I think Ryan Blaney was impressive what he was able to do. I heard somebody today talking on the radio saying how hard it was to pass. Well, Ryan Blaney came from the back and he showed everybody how you pass at Phoenix Raceway and get through that field. So he did a really good job of it. And and he passed some pretty impressive drivers. Christopher Bell pretty much dominated the race. Ty Gibbs had a hard charge to the front. He was able to pass both of those guys and be able to get that win. So I know this is one of his strongest tracks, and I'm glad to see that he kind of showed why it is one of his strongest tracks.
Well, and that's what you got to do when it is your strong track, deliver on it, so that, we talked about that last year of how many DNFs he had, and still in championship contention. So he did it last year as well, starting out the same way this year. What threw me, as you mentioned, Christopher Bell and Ty Gibbs, of Toyota dominated the race, if you will. Ford wins it. Where's that leave Chevy?
I know Chevy really had some problems, and we're going to talk about that during our hot topic conversation here. But speaking of Christopher Bell, he dominated but did not win. He had the fastest car for most of the race. He led 176 laps, by far the most in the race. He finished second after strategy left him deep in the field on that final restart. It's a classic NASCAR storyline, a dominant car, but strategy and restarts cost them the win. So how did they overcome that? What's the takeaway here for Christopher Bell?
Well, as he put it, and again, fans can't get mad. This is what they asked for, if you will. Good points day. Second in stage one behind Ryan Blaney. Yeah, he brought that line out. You knew it was coming. Second in stage one, right behind Ryan Blaney. Then he won stage two and finished second. You mentioned 8 times out front for 176 laps. And honestly, I kept thinking back to last year's championship race, Denny Hamlin, doing everything but getting that checkered flag, because you saw Blaney coming, and it didn't take him long, but 2-3 laps, I think, when he got to him to work around him. The car Blaney's was moving forward and his was letting go a little bit.
Yeah, I would say that would be the takeaway. I think he used up his car, that he didn't have enough of his car available to really fight back. Because the thing that was really ironic about all of that is he took 4 tires and Ryan Blaney took 2. And that 2-tire pit strategy, we talked about it when we did the preview. In the last several races, that's the strategy that has indeed won that race. And that's exactly what Ryan Blaney did.
But that goes back to knowing your team and your driver of what confidence or ability do you have in your cars or driver to be able to make those calls. Not everybody could do that. And there again, it goes back to the Denny Hamlin story. It's like, well, Hamlin tried that last year and it didn't work for him. What's Blaney thinking? But different team, different organization, different driver.
Mm-hmm. And it has been the winning strategy. So, something to think about there for Christopher Bell in the future, because when he took those 4 tires, it's what put him back in the field. So that strategy was something that really was a hindrance for him at that point in time.
And that was talking about the points deal. That was something, I think it was Larry McReynolds when they went to him on what the call should be, said if you were 15th, or I don't remember what number position he gave, but that far back in the field, yeah, you take 2 tires or no tires, you get out front. Yeah, you're going to lose some spots to these teams that took 2 or 4, but you're going to gain points overall. If you're behind them and you take 4, you haven't caught them all day. You ain't going to catch them now. You got to do something different and gain those points that you can.
Right. And I know we're going to be talking about tires later on as well. Okay, let's move on to our next topic. Tyler Reddick's historic winning streak ended at Phoenix. Reddick entered Phoenix on a 3-race winning streak to start the season. He seemed to have some confidence that he thought maybe his car could do it. He was running up front for most of the race. He won at Daytona, Atlanta, and Coda. Phoenix ended his bid for a 4-race sweep. He ended up finishing in 8th. Despite the streak ending, Reddick still leads the championship point standings. The early season dominance may still make him the driver to beat in 2026, but I think he's going to have some challengers.
Well, I do think he's going to have some challengers coming, but right now, again, I got to go to the organization as a whole. First off, starting with Tyler Reddick, again, on the preview show, I said, no, I didn't see it happening. And Christopher Bell and Ryan Blaney were two of them mentioned that would take it away from him, and those were your top two. I will say it was closer, and as he ran throughout the race, I'm like, he is still obviously in the mix. Maybe not dominating. He didn't lead any laps. So, but of just being there, and I look at he finished stage 1 4th. Stage 2 and 8th, and then the race in 8th. So yeah, he was there, which was a little bit better than what I thought. But again, it's what their organization is doing this year. Some of that goes back to, well, they didn't even win a race last year, and then you bring in the team car. Bubba Wallace started 28th, finished 6th. Not sure he was outside the top 10 in stage 1, but got 5th in stage 2 and maintained to finish 6th. Bubba Wallace, okay, that's again 2311 team car. That organization right now, they got it going on. I mean, you can't argue that they're top 1 and 2 in points.
Absolutely. Reddick, I think, is a great driver. I was disappointed that he wasn't winning last year, but I think the organization as a whole was on the downside last year. This year, they've come out full speed ahead and have really dominated the early part of the season. The big question is, can they maintain that going into the chase? And that's a tough thing to do. So far, so good, but we'll see how it continues to play out. I know Bubba ran into some difficulties this week. His car took some beating and banging, if you will. But I think overall that organization is definitely doing much better than they did last year and on the upswing. I'm just curious to see how long that's going to last and who the challengers are going to be. I think we've seen some of that this weekend, but we've got Las Vegas coming up, the more traditional 1.5 mile track. We'll see how that plays out as they go to yet another track this week.
But that goes back to, again, I look at there's All Sports All Days. Said he had hockey, so he's in. Good deal.
Oh, okay. What's up to All Sports All Day? It's great to see you here.
Looking at that of talking about Bubba Wallace, and you mentioned it, overcame. Yes, he had some tire rubs and some bent fenders. But I look back at even last week at Coda, coming back and finishing 11th on a road course. Not his strong suit. Organization carried him there. In the years past, when I've had hope and looking at Bubba Wallace, it's his consistency was 15th, 16th, 17th, and he was right on that playoff cut bubble. Well, right now, that consistency is a little bit better. He's second in points, and he's been 5th to 10th and 11th at the road course week in and week out. And yes, it is early. Sharon, you mentioned it. It's got to be that way through the season and then reset and do it again in the chase. And we'll have to see how that plays out. But right now, you can't argue it. I mean, they got to be considered the top organization.
Right now, we'll see if they can hold on to it. And I think there's a chance that they will, but we'll have to wait and see. Now, Team Penske, this was a big weekend as a doubleheader with the IndyCar Series. And Team Penske it was massive for them. Blaney won the Cup race. The organization also won the IndyCar race in the same weekend. Penske's performance showed organizational strength across multiple racing series. So what are your thoughts about that? We know Team Penske is big in IndyCar as well.
Well, and especially at Phoenix, and we knew what kind of domination Penske has had at Phoenix. Again, that kind of went back to, though, it's been in the fall race, not the spring. I put my money and mouth on Joey Logano. He was in it until he wasn't. Mentioned of that driver kind of coming apart as he lost the car and got shuffled in the back, got tangled up in a lot of those incidences, maybe caused one of them, depending on your viewpoint of it. That's where, and Ryan Blaney was back there as well, but came through it.
Yes.
That's the downside of your aggressive driver, you know, of one that doesn't handle
accountability in both scenarios, as All Sports All Day points out. He owned up to it, which is good.
Right, but that's what as a driver then can you, okay, I'm in the back, I got to calm down and work my way through it, not wreck my way through it or whatever. Joey's one that, has a tough time doing that, and that showed up. You know, you're talking about the getting that Penske sweep. Obviously, like I said, I had put my mouth behind Joey Logano. He started on the pole, so I was like, see, I'm going to look good. And then mid-race or wherever it happened, he went backwards, and Blaney, and I couldn't argue against Blaney when you picked him, Sharon, on the other side of it. They started out strong too. Austin Cindric, unfortunately, his day went bad from the get-go.
He's had a bad start to this season.
Yeah, we'll come to that with the point scenario, but they had all three starting in the top 10, as well as, I believe, Josh Berry, actually, as the Wood Brothers affiliate car, started in 10th. So they were set to go from the beginning. It just didn't pan out for all but Ryan Blaney.
Yes, indeed. I think they are showing some strength already this season. We'll see what happens. Now, Logano's track is actually Las Vegas, the next track that's coming up. So we'll see what they do out at Las Vegas, because I know he's a multiple winner out there. So Joey Logano will have his time to shine. But you're right, that's where that aggressiveness. Ryan Blaney, on the other hand, tends to be more on the respectful side of things and perseveres. So they're two different personalities, but they both have success. So we'll see what happens.
And that's why I say at that time, Ryan Blaney was back there. I don't remember if he had to drive through all of it, but was back there, and because of pit problems, like I said, he managed to go around it, stay out of the trouble, get back to the front, whereas Joey Logano didn't. And if I'm going to point something out, I got to be fair on both sides of it. That's your style can get you in that type of trouble.
Yes, indeed. Odd day for the Chevys. Yes, we're getting ready to come up to that. All Sports All Day. Hang tight with us. I'm going to bring up one other subject before we get into that. I actually had it up next, but I am going to skip it and come back to that, because Jay and I talked about that being a big deal this weekend. Ty Gibbs, though, I want to talk about him. He showed some race-winning speed this weekend as well. He nearly scored his first Cup Series victory. He did hang in there and finally was up there, and that's who Ryan Blaney had to pass in order to get that victory. He led late in the race before Blaney passed him. He finished fourth, but proved he can contend and for wins consistently. Is it a breakthrough for Gibbs? Do you feel like a breakthrough for Gibbs is coming close?
Well, we're getting back to where, into his sophomore season, he was the one of like Sheldon Creed, like you're there, you just need to get that win. This particular race, again, it was a little bit of strategy. Yes, could have won the race, but no, I didn't really feel it. because of the tire situation, the experience of Christopher Bell and Ryan Blaney, as well as then Kyle Larson. And I think he did have a little bit of a battle there with Denny Hamlin, next one behind him, if I remember correctly from this weekend. So that's one of those of, like Larry McReynolds said, take the top spot, hold on as best you can, and maximize what you can get. I thought he did a good job of that. He did not get up there, not have the tires try and throw bad blocks and cost himself.
Yes.
So I will give credit for that. But yeah, we knew he was going to slide back at least that little bit. I think he did a good job of holding on and getting fourth. Now, what I'd like to see is running in that position on a weekly or more regular basis again, and then being able to hold on even a little bit better, of make a block, but it not be a bad block, make it a good block, of before they get there, the arrow blocking, if you will.
Yes, and that's a fine line that these guys have to manage as they're developing as premier race car drivers. And to me, that distinguishes the premier driver from the developing driver, is the ones that are able to do that. So I think that Ty Gibbs has managed to develop his skills. And I think this was a good example of some of that development for him. So we'll see. There were some moments, as you mentioned, but I think overall he did a good job.
And again, you look at his line of, he started 14th, finished stage 1 in 8th, so he had moved up 6 positions. I don't remember how he got shuffled out of stage 2, but then to fight back, use the pit strategy, again, take what you can at that point, and end up with a 4th. For that particular scenario this week, I think they did a great job with it. And as I said, of not then, we gave you the opportunity to get a good top 5, top 10, and taking it away from yourself.
All right. Moving into the next topic, and this is where I was talking about all sports all day. We're going to talk about a wild caution-filled race. The race was chaotic and unpredictable a lot of times. There were 12 cautions tying a track record, multiple incidents, including tire failures, mechanical issues throughout the field. But one of the big victims of this weekend was Chevrolet, and a lot of it was brake issues, and I think some of it was tire issues. Phoenix turned into a strategy race where survival mattered as much as speed. And at first I thought it might have been tire pressure. You know how they play with the tire pressure to get more grip on the track. And then even the commentators mentioned this might not be a tire issue. This might be a brake issue. They were on the brakes quite a bit at Michigan this week, at Phoenix this week. And I think a lot of those were brake issues that were tearing up these cars, but it was mainly for the Chevys, Jay.
Yeah, well, and even looking at stage finishes and laps led, yes, you had Kyle Larson finished, third, started second, finished third, but actually only was 9th in stage 2, wasn't in the top 10 in stage 1, didn't lead any laps. You got teammate William Byron, started 9th, finished 9th in stage 1, wasn't there in stage 2, and did lead one time for one lap. They weren't up there really mixing it up, Now you mentioned and I hadn't noticed that the brake tire, whatever the problem was there. I know at one point they said it was more of a running over debris issue when we had a rash of them. But again, it does appear to have been more of an impact on the Chevys. So there again might have been a tire pressure issue as well, of the tires too low that they were being cut by whatever they were running over. But you just didn't see them in there really mixing it up like you did through the race. It was Toyota. Ford's coming in at the end with Ryan Blaney. That was a little surprising to at least not see him up there like I said, of at least mixing it up a little more. They just happened to get a few up in there at the final.
Yeah, and Phoenix, I don't think, is traditionally a Chevy track. I think it's more of a Toyota, and I think our stats back that up when we did the preview. It was more of a Ford Toyota type track, with Toyota being in second, Ford being overall. So Chevy just doesn't seem to do as well on this track. Now, there are exceptions. I know William Byron has won. He had a streak going, by the way, of most consecutive stage wins, and that was broken up this week at Phoenix.
Oh, I didn't catch that. Yeah, you're right, because he ended up ninth in stage one, and then wasn't in there. As you were saying that, I was like, yeah. As far as it being a Chevy track, I'd be like, you got to go back to Kevin Harvick and RCR, honestly.
Yes. And there's been reconfigurations that have kind of been a part of that storyline as well. So, yeah, it was an odd weekend, I think, for the Chevys. But I think that and I'm sure Chevy's looking at that, Jay. Don't you think they're going to be looking at that this week? There's going to be some roundtables trying to discuss what happened with them at the track.
Well, and here's another thing, and this might be something we talk about later in a separate hot topic too, but the impact of the IndyCar tire as well. Because
the rubber.
The rubber. I hear in a lot of the drivers when they were talking about practice about how slick it was, and I never heard them really go in depth on that. I initially, when we first started seeing tire issues, I wondered if that was it, but then they focused on the rotors, which was the primary culprit, and then talking about the debris. So, yeah, I don't think that was necessarily the issue. They all had to overcome it, and we saw some that did. So I don't know why then other manufacturers would have handled that better than the Chevrolets. Whether or not they put a focus on it, obviously it's still, I believe, a chase track, just not the championship track. You would think that everybody was putting focus on it of how do we beat Penske when it comes to the fall race at Phoenix. I don't know on that one how much of a difference it is between the spring and fall race.
Yeah, well, weather, I think, is the biggest difference. One thing that I heard brought up on the Sirius XM today was they thought there should have been a red flag called at the end of the race because they ran a lot of laps for the cleanup of some of those cars. So what are your thoughts about that? Did NASCAR make the right call by not calling a red flag, or?
I think the fans never get what they want. You know my take on that. NASCAR can't make the right call. If they red flag it, then they're going to say, "Oh, you dictated who won the race."
Well,
they don't
true.
Make it. They don't. Yeah. I think they could have and would have been justified in it. That maybe in retrospect of talking about the possible debris. Okay, somebody obviously feels it should have been a red. Could they have been justified in throwing it? Absolutely. But I'm not one that gets super uptight about that. There have been a couple of situations, and I think back to the road course in Chicago, where I felt like they should have thrown the caution at least earlier than they did. But again, I feel like NASCAR is trying to appease the fans in that versus making the call of what they feel is right for the situation. And with this one, again, maybe they didn't realize how much of a cleanup it was going to take in order to get it cleaned up. So, yeah, all sports all day. Like I said, I can't argue against it by any means. I can just say of being involved at the semi-control booth side, at least up there next to it. It's one of those you make the best judgment you can. Like I said, of they don't want to be called out for conspiring to give somebody or whatever the win.
You're in an open situation for sure.
Normally it's a matter of if they need track access, which Phoenix is a wide track. I guess they felt like they could allow them to go around it, or if they know that it's going to take an amount of time, if they got to repair a wall section or something. I think that's generally where they lean towards throwing the red flag. They know, or one driver possibly, car really damaged and they think there might be an injury, repairs to the track itself. This one again, and sometimes a mistake is made. That one might go down as maybe they should have seen how much debris there was, how many cars were involved, whatnot. I don't know.
Well,
but I wouldn't say you're wrong in calling for it either by any means.
I kind of agree with All Sports All Day that there should have been a red flag there. I know that if you want to know NASCAR's perspective on that, Brad Moran is going to be on Sirius XM, the morning drive tomorrow. And Mike Bagley did say he's going to ask him this question. Why did they call it the way they called it and not call for a red flag? And I suspect it's one of those hindsight is 2020 kind of things. I don't think going into it, they knew that it was going to be as many laps as it was. And so they didn't call it. But it's something that NASCAR needs to take a look at. And you're right. They're kind of in a no-win situation because had they called it, somebody might have said it's race manipulation. They want their favorite driver to win. So they're giving them a chance to do that. But it was a huge waste of laps. I mean, we're sitting there waiting and waiting and waiting for the race to resume. And if, you have the older tires, I don't think they put as much wear and tear on them. But if somebody was in a fuel situation, it's a huge waste of gas and tires and everything. So hopefully it's one of those things that they can learn from, and we'll see what happens later. But it did seem like it was a long time that they were out there on track waiting for that race to resume.
Yeah, that's one of those, Sharon, you brought up a key one. I think if they know they're in a fuel situation, they may be a little bit quicker to not let that be a determining factor. So they'll throw the red a little bit quicker. Honestly, in my opinion, I feel like they maybe just made a misjudgment on how quickly they thought they could get things cleaned up.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's going to be a 2020 thing. Where hindsight is 2020. So again, I just hope that they learn from it.
I don't know if you put it up there. Did All Sports All Day say if he thinks it should have been a red?
Yeah, he did. He said should have been a red.
I know. He was quite clear on his stance on that.
Yes,
I was just giving him a hard time.
Well, and I kind of agree with him. But again, looking at it from our point of view is a little bit different than looking at it from the race control room, where they're making those decisions. They've got 100 different things they're looking at. So I can appreciate where they're coming from as well. So, it's just one of those things. You at this point, you just wish they would have called it.
All right, I scrolled up a little bit. All Sports All Day, I saw where you put that you love ARCA, but that was the worst race since Daytona. Put in the comments why you think so. We did kind of already talk about that.
Why.
I said I did see some things of young, immature or rookie mistakes of what I saw happen, but curious as to your thoughts as to why.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's because you had one driver that pretty much dominated that race.
That could be. Well,
Carson Brown. But you go ahead and tell us why you think it was that way, All Sports All Day. I thought there was a lot of racing that was going on behind the leader, but and that's always fun to watch as well. But I'd be curious to know your thoughts on it. So we'll come back to that.
Yes, please do.
Now, I do have some other hot topics for us to kind of talk about here, Jay. And do you want to pick one, or do you want me to just go down the list?
One last thing of just as far as covering the Cup Series race as a whole, this has been my thing of I think this is a fourth, fifth time tonight. Organization, Spire Motorsports. Michael McDowell ended up with a 9th place finish. Hocevar was a little further down, 20th. Got a stage 7th in stage 2. Not as good as we've seen from them, but again, fairly consistent, better than we have seen them in the past years to start a season. I get excited seeing these organizations that we're starting to see build towards being one of the top elite organizations.
Okay. All Sports All Day does say it was the stupid cautions and added to that just poor racing at the front. Only bright side was some good battles from 3rd to 11th or so. Yeah, you're right. The good racing was going on behind the leader for sure. Yeah, what are your thoughts?
Well, and like I said, that's one where I understand a fan's frustration, and I'm going to pick on Sharon's driver of going back to Martin Truex at the Coke 600. One driver out front, just absolutely untouchable. Carson Brown, his teammate was at least there. I was excited by that because, like I said, I mean, he could get to him, he could get alongside of him, he could get his nose in front of him. Never did so at the start-finish line, unfortunately. Yeah, those two by themselves definitely class of the field. So that one I can at least understand a fan's frustration with. Do I want to see that every week? No, I don't. So from that side of it, like I said, I get that. But to me, I look at it of give that team, driver, organization credit. They had their car on point. Yes. Now, there was some good battles. And there again, some people can't accept that of, I want to see it at the front, 3 wide, at the front, every lap, every, track.
Every race, it's not going to happen.
Right. Yeah, exactly. You ain't going to get your wish. I hate to tell you this. So I appreciate the battles 3rd through 11th. However, as you said, yes, there were some ugly or stupid cautions with that. And that's where when we opened and I talked about it, I said, I saw some things they weren't necessarily rookie drivers, but what I called rookie mistakes of bad decision making.
Yes. All Sports All Day does add that he expects that at least once a year in ARCA, the caution madness.
And to give that shout out of, honestly, like you said, we kind of expected it wasn't at Daytona this year. I thought their Daytona race was really good and clean for the most part. So I guess they just waited a couple weeks with it.
Yeah. And keep in mind, this was the combination event too. So not that justifies it at all.
Well, no, that's an interesting point. Yeah. No, that's an interesting point to it. All right. So picking one of the hot topics. Well, I know we threw this one up there and Sharon and I kind of already talked about it offline, but Brad Keselowski had commented about too many road courses on the schedule, thinks it's bad for business. I will say this. He gave some great insight, and this has been a personal joke with me. I don't know if Sharon's got it. He took his driver's helmet off and put on his owner's hat and talked about it from the cost, sponsorship side, viewership side, fan engagement side. So, he had an opinion, a reason, and backed it up with some things. As a fan, I'm going to be like, no, Brad, you're wrong. I kind of liked when we had 7 or 8. I think we had hit the max end of it with when we had 7 or 8. I don't like to see it as low as it is right now, but as a business side, again, there's a reason for it, and I'll accept it. I think it puts on some of the better racing of the year, with the exception of when we have 1 or 2 drivers, not to call SVG out, but, that totally dominate it. So that's where I feel like you have that. And I didn't even get on SVG because I know he's a good road course racer. We saw at least some races where there were some competitors with him. He just did better than them, and Tyler Reddick beat him this year. So I was okay with it. But there again, I can see where fans would get frustrated with that. But no, as a whole, I like having several road courses throughout the year. When they only had the 2 per year, I was like, you need to do more. So they're finding that balance.
Yeah, you brought up a good point, Jay, that, he was using his team owner hat when he made those comments versus, looking at it from a fan perspective. All Sports All Day says 5. I say 5 is good. I get what Brad was saying, but besides Sonoma, his viewership point was just dead wrong. I was questioning that too. I enjoy the road course races, and I don't want to miss any of those if at all possible, because I think there's some really good racing that goes on the road courses. And I think that the drivers have gotten better and better at road course racing. SVG, dominated last year, but we've seen he's gotten better on the ovals. Drivers have gotten better on the road courses, and there's an evolution that takes place there. And I think that we'll continue to see drivers that will be out there beating SVG on those road courses this year. I don't think we're going to see him as dominant as he has been in the past. Maybe he'll prove me wrong on that, but I do think that we've got drivers that can contend with him now, and I think that's going to make it even more compelling to watch them. But I've seen SVG. Look at what he did at Phoenix this week. SVG was up there mixing it up and doing well on the Phoenix track. So I think that I'm looking at it from the fan perspective, and I appreciate and respect where Brad Keselowski is coming from a team owner's perspective, because it is different when you look at it from that perspective. So I respect his comments. I respect what he had to say about it. But as a fan, I love the road courses. And I agree, 5 is probably a good number.
Yeah, the 4 to 5 of, like I said, of 8, I think was the high we had, 7 or 8. That might have been getting a little much. I don't know what statistics or numbers he had for as far as attendance at the track and the TV viewership numbers. He had some, again, whether they're valid or not, I don't know. He might have made them up. What do I know? I wouldn't have agreed with them, but again, I don't have any kind of data to prove one way or the other either. I'm like Sharon, I'm just strictly speaking as the fans aspect. One of the things, and this is where we talked about, and Sharon's going to start nodding here, of when I went to Road America, I enjoyed it. Yes, if you were sat in one spot, you can only see a portion of the track. My son and I got up and walked around and watched 3 or 4 laps from this corner in this area. Then we moved around. So I actually did enjoy that aspect of, hey, did I have to get up and move around? Yes. Okay. Get it. Maybe some people don't want to do that. They want to sit in one spot and go. And that's what, I thought so too, of Watkins Glen, COTA, of having the biggest crowd. I think Mexico, if I recall correctly, was advertised as a sellout. And that's a question I had of, like, at a road course, how do you call it a sellout? Because there's no, the grandstands are only in certain spots, But I question that too on these street courses. Like, how are you going to define attendance or bring in money as far as ticket sales? Way beyond me. I got no knowledge. I'm not even going to try. But I'm going by what they talk about as far as attendance. I thought all those were up. Brad disagreed, said he had numbers that showed otherwise. I don't know.
Well, I think the stands were full at COTA as one of their biggest crowds. I think they said that during the race, that they hadn't had that kind of attendance in a while, and it was really good. So I think folks are enjoying those road course races. And I did the same thing at the Chicago Street Race last year. We had seats. We sat in the seats for a while, but then we got up and we wandered around and looked at different views, of the
Isn't
race.
that cool? Yeah, I found that really cool.
And really enjoyed doing that. And how do you really judge that? You can't look at the stands and judge where, how many people are there if they're wandering around at different parts of the racetrack.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah, it's kind of a tough one.
Now, I will say this, and I'm not trying to rag on the original two, but Sonoma and Watkins Glen being a little bit bigger, spread out tracks, you don't have that option, or you'd be legs wore out. Road America is packed in tight corners and all, is really good for that. I think we covered and got to see every part of the track, and Sharon's laughing because she knows, and she agreed with me, we need to bring Road America back. So we'll get that little plug in there.
Well, and All Sports All Day brings up another really good point. It doesn't help that Brad's case that he may not be the best at them might have a little bit of bias there.
Some bias, yeah. I thought about that. Yeah, I thought about that.
And he mentions it's hard to judge the attendance at Lime Rock when there are no stands. They have no stands. And he agrees with you that we should bring Road America back.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Sharon and I talked about that offline.
Yes.
Well, and this is just so you know, All Sports All Day, that might be one, as much as we don't like it, of do 2 or 3 years, you're still at max capacity, good viewership or whatever. You take it away for a year or two so that it maintains that high level of interest. We're seeing that with other tracks. Honestly, we saw it with Bristol. I mean, that's why they did the dirt on Bristol and did some different things, because attendance had gone down. So much as I like to see it every year or whatever, that might be a strategy that works, of do it for 2 or 3 years, take a break, and bring it back. I don't know how long it's been for Chicagoland. That was a little excessive, but we'll see how that works out for Chicagoland.
Yes, we'll see. I'm hoping that they have as good of racing as we've seen there in the past at Chicagoland Speedway.
Well, they definitely took that one away at its peak, because Sharon and I were at the last one there, and you couldn't have got no better battle between the Kyles. Yeah.
We saw 4 outstanding races.
Oh, yes, all weekend, yes.
All weekend long. And this year they're not going to have ARCA at the track, which kind of disappoints me.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Okay, so we talked about Brad Keselowski. The other one that's on the list here is, and I don't know, do you feel like we already talked about tires and brakes? We already talked about that one, right?
Yeah, we pretty much did, and that tied into the caution as well. So, yeah, we can skip over that one.
Let's talk about Carson Hocevar talking to Monster Energy.
This one, and again, I want to always say I'm not into the conspiracy theories, but when you have something that kind of ties in, again, sponsor, you got a driver that everybody's talking about. Well, you want to talk to them, be a part of it. They said whether it's a team deal or a car deal or not, they are certainly talking to them as far as a personal, I can't think of the wording right now, endorsement deal. Of personal for the driver. But when you look at it, it kind of ties into possibly the lawsuit between Joe Gibbs Racing. He needs more energy. Yeah, that's what we need, is him jacked up on Monster. Yeah. Does this possibly tie into something Chris Gabehart took from Joe Gibbs of sponsor contract details and bringing over, and again, I was like, I hadn't heard that, but
that whole conversation kicked off.
Right. Like I said, I'm not buying into the conspiracy, but does that fit into that conversation? You don't know what, it kind of does. So whether or not they do, again, a company's got to make their decision, for whatever reasons. Yeah. Sorry, I'm still laughing. I hadn't thought about that. Just don't let him have any before the race, right?
Well, I want to bring up though too, Monster Energy has been known to sponsor more than one car on 2 different teams. So it would not surprise me if they keep their drivers that they have now, or if they're not happy with specific drivers, maybe they will switch out. But we've seen them sponsor more than one driver on more than one team. So
what's the one is on several as well now with
I know Riley Herbst is one.
Well, not just Monster. You got Ty Gibbs and Riley Herbst have both been backed by from Chevy RCR, as well as then Chase Briscoe, Bass Pro Shops.
Yes,
they've done that. You've seen that they do. So that's a company's decision. The manufacturers might not like it and say, hey, it's exclusive to us, but money is money, and you got to work out whatever you can get.
Exactly. So this is all speculation right now.
And that's true. Good call.
Yeah, so we'll have to wait and see how it plays out. I can see how people make the tie-in to the Joe Gibbs, Chris Gabehart thing. But again, I think they might be, let's wait and see what happens before we make that call, number one, because it could be something very innocent where they're just looking at bringing on another driver without taking any sponsorships away from any other drivers.
Right.
So we'll see what happens.
Now, the facts are they have talked to Carson Hocevar. Anything beyond that is where the speculation and rumors and conspiracy come in. They have indeed talked to him. That's been reported as fact.
Right. But it's not come to pass just yet. So we'll see what happens. Okay, the other big story that came out last week was Cletus McFarlane signing with Richard Childress Racing for a part-time schedule beginning at Rockingham.
And I did look in that. We did. It's 3 races per year for the next 2 years is what it's at right now.
Oh, okay. So there we've got confirmation there on that. And it starts at Rockingham. I think we've talked about Cletus McFarlane is going to be good for the sport. Is he the best driver on the track? Probably not. But I think that having this opportunity with RCR could help him develop those skills. And I know he has a lot of fun with it. He brings a lot of fan viewership to the sport. And I don't think it's a bad thing.
One thing here, Sharon, I want to say add in here we may have to talk about rules of fan engagement here. I consider myself fairly professional, but yeah, you can make a comment like all sports all day that he needs more. You can't crack me where I can't get it back. I lost it. I was like, I read that and I lost it.
I know.
Yeah, this is one of, I know, and I won't even call him out. I don't remember who it was, but one of the drivers or analysts said that McFarlane needed to go get some rookie training or, progression wise. I didn't see anything from him that I would have considered that bad or worse than any other drivers we've seen or see out there. And that comes from some that are championship drivers. Okay. Everybody makes a mistake. The truck, did get away from him. He wasn't the only one that lost his truck in that position. So to say he has to go back and go through training, no, I disagree with that. In my opinion, we have seen far worse drivers get seats and rides based on whatever. Now, I will say this, you talked about his social media following, what he brings to the sport. I'm okay with him. He is not my favorite. I know there was rumor of him being one of the Dodge drivers. Again, I think it is good. As Sharon said, I think it is good for the sport. Am I one that follows him and all about rallying to get him in here? No, I'm not. But I'm not against him either. And when it came to, like I said, when they called him out in that accident at Daytona, did he crash in practice? Yes. Okay. Tell me a driver that hasn't. I mean, honestly, so that's where I fall on that. I think he ought to be given the opportunity, if that is in the trucks or O'Reilly Auto Parts initially versus going through 2 or 3 years of ARCA and ARCA West, or I think they actually wanted to put him in late models. No, I disagree with that. Unless you start pulling some other drivers out. Like I said, some of them you got to take away their NASCAR hard card that they already got.
Okay. Well, yeah, I'm happy that he's got the deal with RCR, like All Sports All Day. Congratulations are certainly due to him for that. And it's going to be fun to see him on the track. So we'll see how it continues to play out. Is he going to be perfect? Probably not. He's still going to probably make a few mistakes, but we've seen a lot of rookies make mistakes on the track. So
and that goes back. Falls back under that category. I get frustrated with the fans when they start doing that.
Okay, now this next topic, this is a big one, and I feel bad for him. Alex Bowman, 36th place. He's diagnosed with vertigo. Alfredo stepped into the number 48 at Phoenix. The big question is, first of all, will he be able to return? And they're saying maybe April before he's going to be able to return.
Ooh.
But is he going to be able to climb out of that hole? I know they're asking for a waiver for him so that he can still compete in the chase if he becomes eligible. But he's going to have a huge hole to climb out of. He's already more than 200 points back.
All right, so let's see. 200. Let's see what's his numbers here. Well, yeah, he's only got 23 points. 202 behind the leader. You got to look at 16th, which is at 100. So 80 points back. I don't care who the driver is. In my opinion, no. Actually, I'll go back here. Not far ahead of him. Connor Zilic, your rookie, is at 45 points. Chase Briscoe, 47. Austin Cindric, 52. I'm not even sure those guys can, even if you go out and win a few races and get those bonus points. You got to remember, you got to gain that on other drivers. Not just get those points, but gain on these other drivers. You go out and win 2 or 3 races, gain. Yes, you're going to get up into the 20s, maybe into the teens. But look at the drivers you got to overtake. Brad Keselowski, Daniel Suarez, Ryan Preece, Kyle Busch, Ross Chastain right there in 23rd. You got to gain on them. That means they got to have a bad day. You got to have a great day and do it over multiple races. When they showed interviewed Austin Cindric outside the care center, and he was talking about that of being in the hole. These guys are already, I mean, and being that win gives you the bonus points, but does not lock you in or guarantee you, they're looking at that almost writing them off already. You know, like I said, you're going to gain on some of these other drivers that are mid-pack week in and week out, but to get into the top 16, boy, you better flip that switch right now. Yeah.
He's going to need a couple of wins or more in order to get himself back into the conversation. And All Sports All Day, I couldn't agree more. This couldn't have been a worse start to a contract year.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
I like him, and he needs to have an insane run to get back into the mix. And you're right. It's going to be – now, we've seen drivers do it. I remember Kyle Busch missing 11 races and still coming back and winning a championship.
Okay, but that was under the chase win and you're in format. He had to get in the top 30 in points, which he did. He went out and won, 4 or 5 races, and that just got him into the top 30, which made him eligible. Then with the wins and he was locked into the playoffs, it was a reset. You don't have that anymore.
Yes, it's going to be harder. He says yes, but at the end of the regular season, he was 25th or something. Yeah.
That's what he barely cleared into the top 30.
Yes. So,
and you're talking about an absolute top driver. I didn't mean to cut you off there, Sharon. Sorry, but you're talking about Kyle Busch there. Nothing against Alex Bowman, but you compare stats, Kyle Busch wins. You know, I mean,
there's no doubt about it. And you know, it depends on how he recovers from the vertigo. Hopefully it's not a recurring thing that continues to happen for him. I was trying to remember Brian Vickers. He had a medical situation.
Yep,
I
we
don't know if
talked
it was
about that.
heart
Yep.
or vertigo or maybe a combination thereof, but it was something similar. You know, hopefully this isn't a career ending kind of thing that's happening for him. Right now, they are saying that mid-April, they're thinking that he's going to be able to come back. And I hope he does.
I hadn't heard that update of even for this next race at Las Vegas. Excuse me. There's a couple of things that tie in. We talked about the cool suit failures. I think it was Chase Elliott talked about it. This next gen car, the way the vents are on the hoods and the heat that is coming around the car. He used to say you put your hand out the window, as long as you're not qualifying, it's illegal, to get that fresh air in. He said now if you put your hand out the window, it's going to get burned because of where the vents are. The dual exhaust versus one exhaust and where it runs all the way under the car. The interior of the car is just hotter in general than in the past. So that's, again, why the importance of the cool suits, but we've had some failures with that, and we talked about that. The other factor that I was looking at, and I'm trying to remember where I read it, of just looking at the 48 team itself, comparing it to your other three Hendrick Motorsports car. And I'm trying to look where Anthony Alfredo did filling in. I know he was involved in a wreck, so that was part of it. But with Alfredo, it qualified 31st, didn't get any stage points, ended up 33rd after an accident.
Yeah, he did have that accident.
But again, he was back there for a reason, just wasn't that stellar. So the question was that team not up to par as a whole, you know, regardless of Alex Bowman's situation?
Well, that's a good point as well. So we'll see. I just think he's got a huge hole that he's going to have to climb out of. I don't envy him in his position, but I think if he's got the right frame of mind, yes, I think he could kind of pull himself up and get himself in a better position. But he's going to need wins when he comes back. And
no doubt.
He's going to have to rely on his team. He's going to have to rely on the organization to give him the equipment he needs, and all the way around. All Sports All Day says, I felt bad for Anthony. He didn't qualify good, but he was running well until he got wrecked.
20th to 25th, if I remember. It might have been just inside the top 20, which, again, I thought as a fill-in driver, going into the Cup race, I was actually kind of excited of, and I'd have to look back. I don't have the O'Reilly parts race up anymore. How well he did in the O'Reilly Auto Parts. I thought we might see him get into the low teens. I think he was top 10. Wasn't he the one that got 10th place with Viking Motorsports? Is that where he was? But again,
he was in top was 5th, but I want to look at.
Oh, was he top 5? Wow. Okay.
Well, I think, I don't know why that's sticking in my mind. No, he wasn't top 5, but he was top 10. He was 10th. Okay.
So yeah, I did have a little bit higher hopes during that race, again, of solid, again, a 20th place as a fill-in driver. I look back and this was Alex Bowman's story. He was the simulator driver for HMS when he got the call to fill in for Junior, and that's the position Alfredo is in. I would thought and hoped for a little bit better than that. And there again, I kind of then leaned towards whatever I was reading of, hey, the 48 team has a problem. I was like, well, maybe that's true.
Well, and that's possible. It's very possible. I was looking to see if they've announced who's going to be in the 48. Is Alfredo back in the car? Do you know?
I don't know, Sharon. That's why I said I hadn't even seen or heard that update that it might be later into April before Bowman could return. So that's all news to me.
Yeah, I'm really anxious to find out if he's going to race. I mean, at Las Vegas. I'm kind of curious to find out if Anthony Alfredo will be back in that car or if they'll try a different driver. So I don't know where I heard that. I heard that somewhere that it was going to be April before he comes back. I've got a couple.
Yeah, you want to know what I heard that'll make you laugh? The reason that, well, no, Corey, no, yeah, Corey. Well, that kind of, honestly, All Sports All Day, that kind of ties in. The question of why didn't they give this opportunity to one of their developing drivers? And somebody said they went with Anthony Alfredo as just the fill-in because they're waiting for Jeff Gordon's son or daughter to be of age. That's what cracked me up. That's what I heard. And I was just like, man, y'all are so ridiculous. Where do you come up with this?
Anthony Alfredo does do sim work for Hendrick Motorsports. So it's not like he's not affiliated.
Right.
Yes. And All Sports All Day is backing that up. Yeah, he's the sim driver for Hendrick Motorsports. So he is associated with that organization. And it seems that that would be the go-to guy if they needed a fill-in. So I'm just curious to see if they're going to continue with him or if they're going to try other drivers. I hope it's not Corey Day. I don't think Corey Day is ready for that just yet. And I think the other drivers would probably be a little upset with him if he was racing in the Cup Series. So I think that would be too much too soon for Corey Day.
Yeah, you're right on that side of, again, we're talking about a driver that's not ready yet. I'm good with him where he's at in the O'Reilly Auto Parts. When you're looking at that, especially if it's a relatively short-term fill-in, you're looking for a very solid driver. And I think back to, for many years, it was Landon Castle. Everybody was always like, why does Landon Castle? Because he was a very solid driver. You had what they called the super sub for multiple manufacturers in Regan Smith, because you knew that he would deliver a top 15, 20 position, each and every week that he was in it and needed. So that's what I think they're looking at, of keep the 48 on track. Once you go to a rookie, now you're focused on developing a driver, not the team and whatever. So I think that's a reason for that.
All Sports All Day says if Corey races the Cup, then put Cletus in the 500. Yeah, I thought that was funny.
All right, yeah, you're just trying to throw me off my game tonight.
I think so. Okay, let's go ahead, and I think we've talked that one out. We already talked about the late caution. Now, this is kind of an interesting storyline, and I think you told me about this, Jay. Michael Jordan has requested that Jamie Little be the only person that interviews him.
Yeah, and
a strange request.
It is, and I have my opinion on that. Of I don't care who it is. Of who do you think you are? You get to dictate. You only talk to these people. The ironic thing was, then I saw, again, this is social media, and I have my opinion on that, but fans are still screaming about her, that they don't even want her on pit road, that Fox needs to just let her go entirely. I just don't see what the issue is. I really don't, in the booth or on pit road. But that was kind of a side rant. And I didn't get a chance to pull up before I set up tonight of where that came from. But yeah, Michael Jordan had apparently requested through Fox that Jamie Little be the one to interview it. Whatever the reason, their relationship, what do you call it, the connection, I just don't think that's right of dictating that, honestly. From that perspective, for anybody, for any reason, I don't care if it's Jeff Gordon or, the race winner, whoever it is, Fox has, in my opinion, has a good quality team that are all out there to do their job to say, no, I only want this one. Now, if you're saying I'm at home or whatever, and I'm only going to grant, I get it. Sharon and I have been through that of, trying to get access to drivers or something. That's your right. I get that. But yeah, I disagree with that, telling a broadcast company. And I let me rephrase that, even making that request. Again, did they have to honor it? Have they? Don't know with that. He has made that request. Whether or not they've adhered to it, they did show that the 2 or 3 from last week's COTA race, it was her. It appears they have honored it. Like I said, it threw me.
Okay, All Sports All Day says, no, Jamie is making amazing on pit road, and I agree with that. But Jay in the booth, she's atrocious. I try to be nice, but she's unbearable. But to be clear, second best pit reporter behind Josh Sims. I do agree. I think that she is amazing on pit road. I just agree with that. I think she does a good job there. She knows the story to follow, and she does a good job with that. And I know fans have a problem with her in the booth. She has made some mistakes, and yeah, she's made some pretty bad mistakes. But I try to be forgiving of her for those things, because she's developing. Yeah, I know. You're right. She missed the finish at Rockingham last year. Thought it was the white. Yeah, that was a pretty big one.
Okay. Let me jump in there for a minute. Is Mark Martin the worst driver ever? Does he need to be fired? Because he missed the white flag one time. He pulled off into pit road. I mean, come on.
Well, but when you're watching the race, you want to count on the reporters giving you the right information. So I get it, why fans are upset with that. And it hasn't been just that. She's missed some other things. She's called drivers the wrong name. There's been a lot of different things that have happened. So I kind of see the fan side of that. But I think she is amazing as a pit reporter, and why they're complaining about her there, I just don't get it. I think she's developing as a broadcast booth personality. And if we can be patient with that, maybe she will at one day be really good at it. But Mark Martin doesn't have a big damn score bug telling him it was the white flag. Well, that's true. Or checkered flag. I agree. She's missing a lot of the cues there. So it is a little bit frustrating. So it's something that she needs to work on. I agree. And I think she knows that. So she'll just continue to evolve there. And if she doesn't evolve, then I think people need to stay on that bandwagon. Only had 3 people in his ear to tell.
Yeah, that's one of those of it. And Mark Martin will be one to admit it, of Boner of the Year award for sure.
Yeah, that was a big one on his part. And he is a great driver, but he counts on people giving him that information as well.
Yeah, right. And that's why I said he should, that was to me of on the team of somebody telling him, helping him out. I guess. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Sharon.
No, go ahead.
That's one of those of, I guess for me, I'll say that, of when we get into this Fox versus NBC, or this reporter or broadcaster versus this one, I guess I just don't critique and watch. Yes, she did make that mistake and that was one I certainly would have. I also have been in an announce booth and made mistakes myself. So I know that. I don't know if you saw it, Sharon. There was the anti-Fox sentiment for the ARCA Menards West when they put up Haley Deegan. I guess it had Team Penske on the logo.
I missed that.
Yeah, Fox missed it. I think they said what happened was it was the IndyCar background. They put her name up there, and it still was tied to Penske. Mistakes happen. I mean, again, is that
happen? We're dealing with people. People make mistakes.
Yeah, now, yes, you are a top broadcast company. I get that. But like I said, I must not pay close enough attention or just don't care. Again, I'm not looking to watch Fox broadcast. so that I can critique it and get on social media, and I'm going to go off on a rant. I will say this. I got to watch the O'Reilly Auto Parts race this weekend because CW came in clear. So I was happy with broadcasting this weekend.
Okay. The last thing on our list, because we're coming up on 2 hours here, I want to make sure we get this in. The latest on the Joe Gibbs Racing Chris Gabehart lawsuit. And the comments that I see here on JC's in support of the argument in support of expedited fact discovery against Chris Gabehart and Spire Motorsports, team owners Dan Tauris and Jeff Dickerson. Joe Gibbs Racing filed legal documents that revealed their hiring of a private investigator that followed the defendants after the Cup Series season had ended. JGR filed exhibits in the form of declarations from team competition director Wally Brown, driver Denny Hamlin, Toyota's Andy Graves, and the rival team owner Bob Jenkins to support why it's so important to uncover as soon as possible whether or not Spire acquired proprietary competition data upon hiring Gabehart. And Jay, I know you sent me an article on this too. There was an opinion article by Jerry Jordan at Kicking the Tires. In his opinion, he feels like it gives Joe Gibbs Racing a really bad look that they hired a private investigator. And I guess even the
Herminator, Kenny Wallace,
Carson Hocevar even said they needed a PI for this. They could have just walked next door. That's known as Jeff's table, meaning Jeff Dickerson. The table, they've got pictures of him sitting at the table with Chris Gabehart. So
right.
A bad look, I think, for Joe Gibbs Racing here.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Again, I'm not in the business side. I don't have anything I'm trying to protect and hide or keep to myself from anybody. And like I said, this is, I've seen it and heard it talked about. I'm not involved with it, with wrestling. I mentioned my nephew working for, I say a grass company. He's going to kick me again. Just the natural grass and what they do in the environmental world. You know, again, if the goal is better environment, you know, he talked about that. He had a non-disclosure agreement. And when he went to a different company and they started doing something similar, he did get called in question whether or not he had brought information with them. To me, I want to talk about racing, good or bad. You know, I want to talk about racing, and it just seems like lately, again, I know they see the social media memes, the NASCAR. It's sad, but yeah, it's the world we live in. I do think the $8 million is a little excessive, and there too, that's where I said that kind of the sponsorship deal with Monster Energy kind of plays into that of. You know, but I think of the NFL or even college sports is this way now. You can't even talk to a player or a driver or a team until this date or, you know, in this certain window. You know, if you don't want him with your team anymore, which there was apparently that whole agreement of whether or not he was allowed to do the job he was hired or moved into, you know, go your separate ways and be done, you know. Like I said, the whole 18-month thing, I don't agree with that because I feel like you are then taking somebody's livelihood away. You don't want them working with you. You can't get along with them, whatever. Let them go work somewhere else. You know, that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I think in this article I did read where
Meg, you're killing me tonight, All Sports.
Jerry Jordan was talking about it, and he said, you know, he needs to just drop this at this point because it's a bad look for him hiring a detective to follow this guy around. And I guess they've done some forensics on the computers and all that sort of thing. There wasn't anything, and even the judge questioned what the private detective was all about. So if the judge is questioning all of this, I don't think it bodes well for Joe Gibbs Racing. I think they need to just kind of take a step back and, like you said, let it go and move on. Now, I haven't seen anything that talks about, and I know they're not going to tell us what proprietary information they took or they feel has been taken, but and maybe it's the Monster Energy thing. We're just speculating on that. But
the initial report said something about car setups as well as personal data, which I think had to do with driver contracts, not specifically sponsor. But that was one of the things that got mentioned was driver contract details.
Okay. Well, I just think that I don't. I'm still scratching my head. I'll just put it that way.
Yeah. Again, maybe there was some wrongdoing. When you said Carson Hocevar, I was thinking I had seen Kenny Wallace apparently went off on it on his show about it. I don't know if you know this, Kenny Wallace has opinions and he shares
Yes.
them. He thought the whole thing was ridiculous, that it was a grudge thing, especially being that he said that Ty Gibbs was being shown favoritism. And so this was retaliatory. The fact of, to me, if you have hired the PI and spending that money, you know you're going to get what you want, almost seems like it was a setup of that. They said, yeah, you can go in this computer and then, hey, we're going to follow this and track it, and then turn around and say, hey, you didn't. Again, that's that conspiracy, and I feel bad for myself for even having gone down that road. But that's one of those of it almost appears as if they were setting it up to do this, well in advance, which that definitely is a bad look, like you said.
Yeah, it makes Joe Gibbs Racing look bad. And you're not really helping your case by doing this. And it's putting a light on the fact that there was a feeling that Ty Gibbs was getting some favoritism in the last 3 years. Ty was getting favoritism. I don't want to see why he would have looked without it, but he's off to a good start this year. Did I read that right?
I had to mute myself. That it says if the last 3 years was Ty getting favoritism, saying he couldn't even do any good with. All right, you're killing me, man.
Yeah, I got you now. Yeah, it's really not a good look. Anytime these lawsuits happen, you've got stuff that come out that is, again, I think positioning by both sides. But in this case, it does sound like the judge is even questioning the tactics that are being used here. So you got to wonder when the judge is seeing through the smoke here.
One of the things, I think there may be a valid point in that Joe Gibbs Racing did it to bring it to light for crew chiefs or other team members, whatever it be, set the standard of, hey, this isn't acceptable, and there's a court case to back it up. We've never seen that precedent be set so far. I think about go back to the days of Dale Inman.
Is that the way we really want to handle those kind of things? Can't you set expectations?
Right. Well, I mean, that's what I just think back to now that I'm thinking about it. They called Dale Inman Suitcase Jake, because he worked for Richard Petty and then he worked for Cale Yarborough and he worked for whoever. He never stayed in one place real long. Granted, you don't have as much technical and computer data. There it was again. That goes back to what you see and have in your brain. You can't take away from somebody. Right. But oh man, for the life of me now, I can't think of his name. But they called him Suitcase Jake.
Okay, so I think that was our last big one that we had to talk about. Did you have anything else?
Yeah, we got a new hot topic of what do you do? How bad do you feel for broadcasters when there's people that are just making them laugh while they're on camera? All sports all day. You've been great tonight. Man, you got me a couple of good ones there.
You like that sense of humor. Yes, yes. Okay, well, I've got kind of some closing comments here. If you've got anything you want to add after I say this, let me know. But Phoenix always has a way of telling us a lot about where the season is headed, and this weekend was no exception. It's our first chance to see where the season is headed. In the NASCAR Cup Series, Ryan Blaney proved that championship contenders never stay down for long, while Christopher Bell showed he may have one of the fastest teams in the garage right now. In the O'Reilly Series, the battle between Justin Allgaier and Jesse Love could be just the beginning of a rivalry that shapes the entire season. But I think there's a third driver that's going to be in that mix, and I think that's going to be Austin Hill. And in the ARCA Menards Series, keep an eye on Carson Brown. I don't know if he's racing full time. Do you know if he's racing?
No, he's not. He's not full time. No,
I did not think so. Okay, because that performance at Phoenix may be the start of something big. But I would say watch Pinnacle Racing Group and see how they continue to perform. We know that 28 car is a championship winning car. So whoever's driving that car is probably going to have a good run. Phoenix shook up the standings, raised a few questions, and gave us plenty to talk about as the season rolls on. And we want to hear from all you guys. If you're watching on Facebook or if you're watching on YouTube, put some comments in the, share your comments in the comments section as far as what you think the biggest storyline from Phoenix was. Be sure you drop your comments in there. And if you enjoyed this discussion, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us next time for another edition of Hot Topics Sound Off. Until then, keep watching the racing. And Jay, did you have anything you wanted to add to that? I know.
No. The talking about the point standings, I think we're starting to see it. I don't know if we still got the full story. Like I said, about 6 races where you really start to see. There's a couple that, as I see it, Bubba Wallace 2311 as an organization, can that be maintained? We've talked about Shane Van Gisbergen. He's still 6 in points. Had another 11th place, I think it was. There again, can that be maintained? You know, how big a threat is he throughout the year now? And then for me, and this is just my looking at it, I'm looking at Spire Motorsports. Daniel Suarez didn't get the finish there, but was having a solid race. You still got Michael McDowell in 8th and Carson Hocevar in 14th. I really think that organization could be ready to become one of the top organization conversation. I don't know if they're quite there yet to be one of the top 4, because we got some powerhouses with Joe Gibbs Racing, 2311 now, Penske, HMS. So, but they're getting there, and I like that. So I think another week or two, and yeah, we'll still see. And then my last storyline is those that are down with this new points bonus for the wins, but not a lock-in. How far back can you be and climb out of the hole? That's to me is who can climb up the highest.
I think it's going to be a storyline.
When we were talking about that earlier, I wanted to go back to Isabella Robusto because I talked about that in the ARCA Menards, and I know their points is a little bit different as All Sports All Day put up there, but she had a tough start and went on a streak of top 10, I believe it was, finishes, really good runs. She only got back to 5th in points. So talking about some of these drivers we say may get into the chase and whatnot, I don't see them necessarily becoming championship contending teams, but it's a matter of how high can they get and how hot their streak is.
Yeah, All Sports All Day just wants us to remember that ARCA has a 50-point bonus for every 5 races. So full-time drivers could start to pull away by the end of the year. Without a doubt, those full-time drivers are going to prevail in the end. And but I was impressed with Carson Brown this weekend. He is an ASA champion. And it was really good to see him in the race this weekend. So you bring up some really good points, Jay. And I can't wait to see how the season continues to progress. There's going to be, the players are going to change. There's going to be comers and goers. So we'll keep an eye on that.
Well, and I like that mix. Again, I know some people aren't fans of certain drivers. I like the fact that they are in the mix and you don't have the same 4 or 8, 9, 10 every year that are at the top. So I like the mixture. I like the competitiveness.
Okay, this week's watch list, we did our Hot Topic Sound Off at 8:15 tonight. We're here every Monday night at 8:15 for Hot Topic Sound Off, where we kind of review the racing over the weekend and all the hot topics from each series. And then we get into any other hot topics that are on our list. So that's every Monday at 8:15. This Wednesday at 6, and that's 8:15 Central Time. 6 p.m. Central Time, we'll have Race Chat live on Wednesday. And the guys, Chris Crichton, Taz Taylor, and CJ Sports will be here to talk about the current storylines and the hot storylines midweek. So you'll want to tune in for that. And then Jay and I will do the previews this week. There's only 2 races in this upcoming weekend at Las Vegas, and that's the Xfinity Series and the Cup Series. So it's going to be a short preview week this week. I will tell you, we don't have an interview on Tuesday, so no interviews will be out this week. But Taz and I will be back on Friday for the fantasy report for Las Vegas to help you with your NASCAR Cup Series picks for your fantasy teams. So be on the lookout for that on Friday. And then, of course, the racing at Las Vegas Motor Speedway for the Xfinity Series on Saturday, the Cup Series on Sunday. And we're definitely looking forward to all of it.
Absolutely. And we will see you on the other side.
Well, until the next time, though, keep your foot on the gas and your opinions ready. We'll see you next week on Hot Topic Sound Off at 8:15. Whoops, we got a lot of comments here from, okay, yes. Thanks, All Sports All Day. We do appreciate you and the comments that you share with us throughout the show. We encourage others to do that as well. So thank you for watching, and we'll see you with the Race Chat Live and fantasy racing later on this weekend, as well as the previews for Las Vegas.